All right, everybody, thank you again for joining us today for the McMullen Area Groundwater Sustainability Agency for MAGNA's annual vision event. This is one of our favorite events of the year, being able to gather together with our landowners and stakeholders and talk about what you expect for this upcoming year. But before we dive into all that, Crystal Tufension is going to share what our theme is for today's event. So I'm going to turn it over to the brilliant Crystal Tufension.
Well, welcome. Let's get started. Okay, this picture that Ashley's going to click to. Okay, this picture is a picture of my husband's uncle's pathway. He's 95 years old. This path he walks every day on their 40-acre ranch. He walks this path because it's familiar. It's smooth. There's no bumps. It's well-worn. This is not Max's path. As a groundwater-only GSA, our path is not smooth. We don't have surface water. We don't have infrastructure yet. So our path looks like this. Yes, we don't have a smooth path, but what we do have is we have a great group of landowners and the staff who are very dedicated. And so we're going to talk to you about how we're blazing through this path today and what we plan to accomplish in 2026. Matt's going to talk about first how we have met our 2025 targets for what we have said we will reduce for groundwater overdraft in the King Subbasin. And he's also going to talk about how we're going to meet our 2030 targets. These targets are in our groundwater sustainability plan, and it's how we say we're going to get to sustainability by 2040. Then we're going to talk about some on-the-ground new technology that you're going to be able to use as a water management tool. We're very excited to share with you. Matt's going to talk about how we have a new partnership with our neighbor James Irrigation District and how we're going to move forward with them. And then he'll be summarizing our McMullen expansion project. He's going to talk about how we're going to fund it and start construction this year. And when that project is built, it's going to be one of the largest on-farm recharge projects in the state. And then he's going to finish up with telling you about the status of the Aquaterra water bank. But first, Matt's just going to remind us, why are we here? Why do we have to do this? What is this all about? It's really about that 4-letter word, Sigma. Matt?
Yeah, Sigma is a 4-letter word, I guess. That's a word. Anyway, yes, Matt Hurley, our general manager. Thank you, Crystal. We are going to go back. First of all, we'll look at, there's the team. Crystal and I work every day along with several other folks in the field, and of course, Ashley on outreach. And most of you have met Gary out there wandering around in his big Ram truck doing his visits to all the well sites and all that. He is irreplaceable, I guess is the word, not replaceable, whatever it is. He's indispensable. He's become so familiar with everything that's happening out there. It's impossible to do without him. But anyway, there we are. We're at the office every day. We still invite everybody to drop in when they want to. Several of you take advantage of that and come in and talk to us on a regular basis, but all of you are invited to come by and visit anytime. All right, why are we here? Let's take a trip, down memory lane. Well, it could be bad, I suppose, for some people. Back in 2014, the state legislature tried to fix what they saw as a problem coming, which is the overdrafting of groundwater within the state, and came up with a plan that they now call the Sustainable Groundwater Management. What we have to do, or what we had to do back then, was form our GSA. Our GSA, as a reminder, is made up of the county of Fresno, Mid-Valley Water District, and Raisin City Water District. As most all of you know, unless you live in Mid-Valley and you didn't get any word of it, the Raisin City Water District has increased in size, and the county of Fresno has decreased in size, but the three entities still remain our joint partner in the intervention. We also are now the Purple Dragon, as you see there, in the western part of the King Subbasin. We all are part of the 7 GSA King Subbasin, and we work together. We meet monthly to talk about common issues, and try to work through common concerns. Latest item on the agenda recently has been a discussion of possible framework for allocations of groundwater within the subbasin. Thus far, McMullen's representative has had a tendency to be disagreeable about that because we don't believe necessarily that we should shorten the period of time necessary to arrive at an allocation until we have all the data we need. And in our plan, it says 2030, and today I asked him, I checked, it's still 2026. So no hurry to get to allocations. Other folks see it differently. We're working. All right, so we turned in our plan in 2020. We actually approved it in 2019. Got it approved with some changes necessary and worked through those changes. And now, fortunately, one of the best things that happened so far to this subbasin is that we did not get put into probation. We are compliant with the regulations under Sigma, and we continue to make our efforts to stay that way. DWR does not just forget about us. We do report to them annually. We just submitted a 5-year analysis of what we did during our first 5-year period, which was required, and they're reviewing all that to make sure that we stay compliant, and we expect to. Last but not least, we have until 2040 to become compliant, which means that Sigma has been successful and our groundwater situation has at least stabilized. Ideally, the hydrograph remains flat, and in the perfect world, the hydrograph begins to go the other direction and starts to move back towards the surface rather than continuing to run down to crash landing at the bottom. So that's kind of why we're here. And of course, there it is. We need a groundwater situation which is balanced by 2040. If you come by the office, you'll see it looks like an atomic clock counting down. As of today, we have 5,115 days to go until we reach 2040. So don't panic. At the same time, don't lose sight of what we're doing because we do have to work on this every hour of every day and we get there. Okay, how did we do so far? Just to review what our plan says, and you can see that there's more reason to pucker the closer to the right we get. Our plan says, and our basin agreed that for the first 5 years that we would reduce the overdraft in the subbasin by 10%. We did that. Happy to report that we sent to the state a report that said, yes, we met those requirements. The subbasin met those requirements and McMullen met those requirements. So we are there at that point. That's 125. And we turned in a report that happily said that. Now we're in 2026. Between now and 2030, we've agreed as a subbasin that we're going to add an additional 20% of reduction. That means for us, what was 9,100 acre feet to be reduced becomes an additional 18,212, not including the 9,100, but in addition to, so around 27,000 acre feet round numbers, what we need to be successful in getting to by 2030. And then the rubber really begins to hit the road. We need to double that, an additional 27,000 acre feet in the 2030 to 2035 period. And then last but not least, if we have not been successful in getting there, we'd have to add an additional 40% of mitigation to get us to sustainability. And that's based upon our original number. And if we did nothing, that's how much we would have to ramp it down. I can honestly say and happily say that that's not our plan, to simply ramp it down and make you guys use half the water that you're used to using. On the contrary, even back to the video we made in the beginning of Sigma, it would be over my dead body that anybody would be having to retire land involuntarily or reaching an allocation that was intolerable without us giving it 150% effort to get you to keep exactly where you are today. That's what we're talking. Keep you exactly where you are today. No worse than where we need to get more water to do that, but that's the time. All right. Trailblazing forward in 2026. I believe that better than the general manager deputy has that, and she'll fill you in.
There's a famous quote that says, the best way to predict the future is to create the future. Now, MAGSA has changed your future, but it hasn't defined it. Collectively, we are creating the future of how we're going to deal with Sigma. And last year, if you were at our vision event, you might remember I put up this graphic. And these are the key elements that we are working on toward becoming sustainable. So the top two, the expansion project and the Aquaterra Water Bank. Those again are external water supplies. They're the ones about bringing water into our service area. The next two, irrigation efficiency and groundwater markets. Those are internal water management strategies. Those actually make you the manager of your groundwater supply. And then meters underpinning the whole thing. You might have heard Matt say, estimates and educated guesses are tools for fools when you're managing groundwater, especially for a groundwater sustainable agency that has only groundwater supply. That's why meters have been so important. And we know there are about 1,200 wells, ag wells in our service area. And thanks to many of you, approximately 1,000 of those wells have been metered. That's going to give us the firm data so that we can manage precisely the groundwater that we have in our service area. Now I want to dig a little deeper into irrigation efficiency. Our groundwater sustainability plan states that 10% of our groundwater overdraft reduction that we're responsible for in the Kings Basin will come from water conservation. That's why irrigation efficiency is a top priority for us. Now, we did get a grant for the Grower Irrigation Academy. That is a grant through the California Department of Food and Agriculture. It was a joint application with MAGSA and Fresno State Center for Irrigation Technology. Now that academy has workshops, webinars, has had field days where you learn irrigation strategies, have experts from Fresno State, the farm advisor from the Cooperative Extension talked about topics of irrigation scheduling, performance, maintenance. We are very concerned about making sure that you understand or have the tools that you need for proper irrigation. So what we'd like to have to share, just to get you excited about it, and share some experience about it. We've asked Donnie Gragnani, it's easier than to function, but I still can't get it, and Ashley to come up and have a discussion about it.
You can stay seated, keep it comfortable and casual, but I saw you at both our Grower Irrigation Academy workshop and field day this last November. And you just had a lot of great things to say about it. So I wanted to ask, what was one thing that you learned at the workshop or field day that really stuck with you or felt immediately useful on your part?
Yeah, I was able to learn more about how to access the flow meter data and apply it in ways that can help me out and not waste water or money. And I was able to use the tensiometers you guys gave us, me and my friend, to figure out the moisture in our soil or the lack of moisture. And then also some lessons on how to figure out how the water is being distributed through my lines in my field.
Did seeing the tools and data or actually being out in the field and watching the tensiometer demonstration, did it feel immediately useful or change how you might use it for your irrigation practices?
Yeah, and having a professional there to demonstrate it for me and then be able to ask questions and then also get the connection to follow up if I need to later on to apply it later was super helpful. And then also, like I said, seeing how to figure out what formulas and your well depth and everything, and having the connection to follow up again if you need to later is really helpful. So I could do that and save water and save money.
Okay, and then the last question I have, this sounds like an advertisement because it is. If one of your fellow Madison growers were to ask if these events, the field day, the workshop, which as well as how you are going to continue this next year, if they're worth attending, what would you say?
Yeah, I would say definitely come out. It's fun. Get firsthand experience, and it's easier to learn that way, and you can make good connections to help you out. And then you can get a good Subway sandwich too and some chips.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Applause. Thank you, Donnie.
Okay, next I want to talk about our weather stations. As you know, we did get a grant, a federal grant to help you financially to install your meters and telemetry. But also with that grant, we have funding for 6 weather stations that we are going to be placing throughout our service area. This is actually a picture of one that's being installed in our northern area. these weather stations will have a lot of sensors to bring you high quality, consistent data. And if you look at this map shows the 6 zones of where these weather stations will be. Each one of these represent about approximately 20,000 acres. And so you're going to have weather data as a microclimate within MAGSA's service area so that you can do a better job with irrigation scheduling. We're going to make this data initially accessible on MAGSA's website, but we are working on a grant with Fresno State, Fresno CIT right now. And if we get that grant, which we hope to find out in June, if it's funded, we'll make that data even more accessible to you. So we do have plans. We have funding for 1 more year of the Grower Irrigation Academy. And so we're going to use those funds to do education on the weather stations and some new topics. So we really like you to come. As I said earlier, 10% of the reduction that we have to do to eliminate the overdraft that we're responsible for is identified as water conservation. So we encourage you to go to the website where we put up a lot of good informational tools. We have a video library with some good instructions there. We have that soil map where you can get down to the soils on your field. And we have a lot of event recordings and handouts. So if you can, I should say, please come to the events this year. You'll learn a lot about the weather stations and some more tools. And we look forward to seeing you. And now I'm going to turn it over to Matt because he's going to talk about our projects.
Thanks, Crystal. First of all, there's a big circle there for a reason. As most of you know, over the last year or so, we were involved in a fairly serious arm wrestling match with our neighbors to the west, James Irrigation District. It evolved into each of you, in many instances here, being named as parties defendant in a potential really ugly lawsuit. Happy to say that, as with all lawsuits, when clear heads prevail, that we've been able to reach a very good settlement with the James folks. And I would call what we've agreed to enter into more of a partnership than a settlement. It looks like we have clear understanding now of each other's interests and where we were coming from. We've kind of gotten away from the misunderstanding, and quite honestly, I'm really looking forward to working with James and the James landowners to move forward. By ourselves, MAGSA is going to make it. With James, with our other sub-basin folks, our partners in the sub-basin, no question that we'll do better. As a group, those boats are all going to rise with that rising tide much faster and much easier. So I just wanted to start out because even the projects that we're going to do are going to be enhanced greatly by our new relationship with James. So for those of you who are wondering, who maybe even come here today to determine whether or not we were still at war with James, we are not. In fact, as we speak, probably, I think the attorney has indicated today, all the final paperwork at the courthouse is being taken care of and those lawsuits have all been dismissed. And so for the first time in a while, MAGSA and MAGSA's now new partner to the west have a clear schedule ahead to work proactively, not in any degrading manner. So I would give a round of applause to James for that. Tom, make sure you take that back and let him know. We're very happy to be able to work with them going forward. They're going to be critical, both the expansion project and on the Aquaterra water bank. All right. With that said, let's turn to those 2 projects. Now, those of you who came last year, you're going to say, Matt, you told us about these projects last year. Well, certain things have changed. I'm an optimist. Glenn knows I'm an optimist. If you went back and found the original schedule on both these projects, we'd be taking canoes down the canal right now if we could. Things don't always work that way. There are things that come up, like disagreement with James, for example, like longer than average assessments of environmental reviews, et cetera, that put us effectively where we were last year, but actually, in retrospect, a lot better, more prepared and better prepared to move forward with the projects as they've been planned. No major changes have been made to the projects. They essentially lay out the same. The water bank, I think we've got a poster over here. You can take a look at that if you need to, but this is the expansion project. This is first up. That expansion project is truly an expansion. The green at the corner over there is Don Cameron's Terra Nova project. That has been a real successful, well thought out forethought. Actually, it represents forethought because Don was working on that even before Sigmund came along. And so the successes of the Terra Nova project, we're hoping to move further and further to the east and add about 12 miles of canals and some lift stations and some road crossings to get it out there and allow for about 10 times the amount of water to be put into the ground that Don was able to put in the ground in 2023. So right now, let's take a little walk back to 2023 and let's take a look at what Don had to deal with. This was the young gentleman who was up on that what looks like a SpaceX launching station out there. He was trying to get that big 450 horsepower motor to spin up. So we have a little quick video for it.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. All right, let's go. So we ran our trial early in the week, and now we're going to turn it on and let it run. Everybody ready? There she goes. You know, today is really special because we have turned on the pump that pumps about 70,000 gallons a minute. It's preventing flooding downstream to the communities of Mendota and Firebaugh. By taking it off and beginning to recharge, we'll start to rebuild some of the aquifer out here because we know that we've got droughts around the corner, but we know we want to take advantage of this. This is the start of a new era here. For groundwater recharge and for flood protection along the North Fork of the King River. This has been 11 years of work and getting this project put together, and to finally see it running is just fantastic.
Hi, I'm Matt Abercrombie. I'm a farmer in this general area. I'm out here at the Terra Nova project with Don Cameron. He's just turned on the pump. This is a project I've been watching for the last at least 10 years, waiting for this day where there's actual water flowing in this project. You know, getting water, flood waters off the James bypass out here that would probably go to Mendota or Firebaugh, and with all this rain and water we have would probably create problems downstream. So with this project operating, it's probably taken a lot of pressure off the cities downstream as far as flooding. It's just exciting to see it, capturing that water so it doesn't go down the river to out to the delta, out to the ocean. This will help, you know, with the groundwater levels. You won't have to pump as much water. It's good, clean water. It's good for recharge. So we just hope it's a long, wet water year and he can take all the water he needs on this project. I think Don said it's around 300 acre-feet a day. That's a huge amount. That'll go a long way to solving our groundwater problems in this area.
Okay, not again, Don. Anyway, thanks to Don for that. And of course, Matt didn't even know he was going to be doing a pre-commercial for the expansion project. So what's the expansion project going to look like? Right where that, what I call the SpaceX launching site with that big 450 horsepower motor and that pump there, there's 3 more bays. And we're looking at about a total of 600 cubic feet per second, potentially going through there when max flows are in flood stage on the bypass. Once again, you saw the James Weir was there, the 2 James Weirs were there. James has been a part of the Terra Nova project and will continue to be a part of the Terra Nova project and the expansion project as we work on the management of those flows, flood flows in the bypass and try to get as much water channeled back into Don's initial 500 cubic foot per second canal there as we can. So what's it going to look like? We're going to put those 3 more pumps on there. We're going to go 12 miles to the east. We're going to have 3 lift stations. And we're going to be, doing all the last minute details. Lynn Groundwater from PNP has been hard at work on getting all the details for bidding. We've done some pre-bidding on it. We're pretty happy with what the actual costs look like they're going to be. We have to go back out and visit with some of our landowners that we've already talked to about the canals being placed on their property as we move to the east. And we have to bid the project and get it in the shape to go to construction, which means cross your fingers, that dirt's going to move, hopefully in 2026. We said that in 2025. I'm going to kick some just so I wasn't a liar, but that's not the kind of dirt movement we want to do. We are going to move it this year though, but it's the big but, right? Tough marketplace, I know. We're paying $19 an acre towards McMullen's activities so far. I think in the scheme of things, I can attest to the fact in Madera County, $19 would be sold out in about 30 seconds if farming can be done for that up there. We're going to have to pay for the cost of this construction. We've gone ahead and made arrangements with some financing folks to do that for us. And what we're going to have to come back and ask our landowners to do once more is to not pay for the entire project, but to pay for the interest carried, the financing costs associated with it. We've been doing some assessments that the board has not even fully decided upon yet. We're going to let them know about what all that looks like now. So they're thinking about it going, oh man, we got to deal with this. I didn't know this was part of the board. Of course it is. But we're hoping to keep somewhere, the total between our current $19. We can probably save a little money on the $19, put it into the implementation phase and go to work with it. Main thing you need to know, and maybe you're scratching your head, well, why didn't we do this in the beginning? When we approved the $19 on the first and the renewal of the Prop 218 election that we did from the beginning of Mullen, we approved only the planning and design for projects that might be put in order to meet the requirements of city. The limitations on that $19 were that it could be only used for those 2 purposes. And it could not be used to do dirt moving. It could not be used to pay for hard costs of the pumps and the motors and the concrete and steel that are going to be required to do the expansion project. That was for a reason. 2017 was a time when people were coming together and trying to decide if they were going to be able to trust their partners in the JPA and whether or not this was going to hold and whether it would be going forward. So there was some reasonable constraints put on it, and that was the constraint. So now, in order to actually start making things happen and making these projects come to reality, we need to come back to you again. Hopefully you're satisfied that McMullen's done a decent job of representing you in the Sigma process and are prepared to give us the okay to move forward and do the improvements necessary and to stand out the monies necessary to make that happen. So that's the answer to the question, how will it get paid for? You're going to hear from us very soon. Our consultants will be out to talk to you about the election. It will be an election. It'll be a affirmative election of the landowners on each acre. And I would hope that you'll all begin to think about it so you're not totally surprised when it shows up in your mail, but it will be happening fairly soon. I would like to think that there's a real possibility that we will have dirt moving away from the Terra Nova project and to the east sometime in either April or May. And if the construction goes as planned and the contractors don't reach any Indian burial grounds or anything crazy like that we don't know about, we'll hopefully be done by sometime in mid-2027 with the main part of the construction, the canal itself, and we'll be finishing up on the steel and concrete. There will be 3 lift stations. Those lift stations will be similar to what Don had there, but they'll have 6 bays and they'll have full ability for us to adjust from anywhere from 45 CFS all the way up to 350 to 400 CFS of flow, depending on exactly what the conditions are in the bypass with. So gives us a lot of flexibility, gives us a lot of ability to move that water at a controlled rate. And it'll be a bi-directional canal, so once it gets all the way out, we can bring water back if we need to, service people downstream. So that's the answer to that big honking question that we made sure we put up there, because no surprises anymore, hopefully. All right, the Aquaterra Water Bank. Now we're talking about the Grandin. McMullen expansion project is one thing. It's about 12 miles. It's expansion of the Terra Nova project. Let's anticipate waters coming off the Keys during flood, and we'll look at a partnership with James and utilizing those waters to get them out there into the Raisin City area. The Aquaterra Water Bank, by comparison, is currently designed to be about an 800,000 acre-foot storage facility underground, taking sort of back some of that land, or some of that quantity, or some of that capacity that we've lost over the last 100 years or so, and refilling the subsurface. As part of that, we will seek subscribers who will ask us to store their water for them. It's highly likely that those subscribers are going to be state or federal water contractors, having contracts with the state or federal government, and that they will be bringing that water down during periods of excess when they can no longer hold it in the San Luis Reservoir or the Mule Bay, or there's water available in the Delta. They'll bring it down, they'll try to stick it underneath McMullen, and then take it back during times when perhaps drought is affecting them and they need to get water back. So that's the general layout and plan. What does McMullen get out of it? We will charge, currently we're looking at charging $750 an acre foot in perpetuity for that 800,000 acre feet of storage. That will generate approximately $600 million. And that $600 million is intended to pay for all of the improvements necessary to make the Aquaterra Water Bank a reality. What does that do for you? Well, in my perfect plan, it means that you will watch us construct it and will not have to dip any further into your wall. That's the plan. If we could make it happen that way, fantastic. What else do we get out of the deal? We get 10% lead bond. So every time a depositor brings their water into McMullen, if they bring in 100,000, for example, we show a credit of 90,000 for them, 10,000 goes in the ground, remains here as leave behind for the benefit of the McMullen landowners. And so it does work out nicely. It does, in theory, work great for us. It does help us to retire our overdraft. It does help us to continue to seek that balance that we're looking for. And we can all just hope for that to be the ultimate result. Where are we right now? We brought along a consultant with us, an environmental consultant. They took a look at what we were doing originally about a year ago. We had what they call an initial study, a mitigated negative deck that was recommended to us for our environmental review. Some folks commented on our project and and raised some interesting questions. We felt like perhaps we couldn't answer given the data that we had before us at that time. And so the board, I think in really good solid decision-making analysis, decided that we would go ahead and have that consultant prepare what was a full environmental impact report. So a year ago, I said we were going to be working on Aquaterra, but we decided to expand that environmental review. And so far that expansion has been pretty enlightening. And of course, Lynn, when she goes to draw the actual plans for that, and we do lay it out, we'll take all the information we learned during that process. But we're there, and we placed our environmental impact report up in what's called the clearinghouse, the California Clearinghouse. We put it out there for everyone in the world to see. We've gotten some additional comments back, and right now we're reviewing those comments, and hopefully we'll be able to finalize that environmental review. And what that means is that we'll be able to then cut, Lynn loose and let her go for it to really start doing the serious design work that's necessary to get us to a point where we can actually look at constructing that as well. Sort of dovetails nicely if we can get the expansion project completed and potentially available for operation. The Aquaterra Water Bank, hopefully in the middle and the northern part of the district, will become a part of the construction project that will come online not too far after that. And we'll have both of those state and federal waters potentially coming in, and expansion project on the southwest side. All right, what's next? Landowner perspective. I see it, it's sitting at the end of the road down there, landowner perspective. That means you don't have to listen to me anymore and you can listen to Lori Daniele. The Jelana Ranch. Farmers are much better to listen to than.
Just to close out this presentation before we go into Q&A, Lori, can you share with me your perspective on everything that was just said, no pressure, but specifically as a landowner, what value do you see the work that NASA is doing as it relates to the future of farming in the region?
Well, first of all, I hope you guys agree, as growers and farm landowners. I think it just helps as a group for everybody to get together and fight for what we do. As a group, again, trying to get everybody to agree on something that will help sustain what we do, what our livelihood is. I think it takes people, mountains to make things happen. I think for years we've needed sustainability. We've needed to try to capture some of the water. Obviously, we use a lot of water, and I think McMullen has been able to lead us to get to where we need to be. And if we can't work together as a group of people and support what needs to happen, the state's going to do it for us. So I think NASA's done a great job in the forefront of making that happen.
Thank you, Lori. And you touched on this already, but what role do you see yourself playing in Max's goal to achieve groundwater sustainability by 2024?
I think all of us need to do what we can to be a part, educate ourselves, go visit these people in their office hours. They are very transparent, just to be on board, to agree that something needs to be done. And as much as we don't want our wells metered and all the changes that are happening, I think, again, working as a group, I see myself trying to be a part of that, trying to talk to other growers and say, hey, whether we want to do this or not, it needs to be done. And how can we do it in a manner that's going to best benefit us? How can we be a part?
Thank you so much, Lori. Can you guys join me in giving her a round of applause? So, Lori and Donnie, thank you. Feel free to sit down at your tables, and I'm going to open it up. Really, one of the key purposes of this event is to just allow you to ask questions about anything. Hopefully related to what we talked about today or related to NASA and what our goals are for 2026. But what I'm going to do is this is being recorded, so I'm going to bring you a microphone. If you could just raise your hand, that way the video can pick up your question for anybody who wants to watch this in the future. And then Matt and Crystal will respond. So Q&A time.
Before we do that though, for those of you who haven't met him yet, maybe haven't seen him around, back in the back corner back there is Vin Nidger. He is the newest board member in McMullen. Ariel Nambar from Mid Valley, actually, I think he separated his Achilles tendon. I think he carried over from the NFL. Seems like everybody did that in the NFL this year, but so he now represents Mid Valley on the board. He is the newest Mid Valley and MAGSA board member. I want to make sure that we didn't not introduce him, so that in case you needed to chat with him, you could. And of course, Matt's right here in the middle. We've already seen him. Don is down doing what Don does, meeting and talking to people about really, really important issues that affect us as well. And I don't know where the other two characters are. We're all here for you, and there's no such thing as a dumb question, folks. So fire away. This is your opportunity, and let's see if we can air whatever concerns you, or you want to say good things. We accept those.
Questions? Right.
Thank you, Matt. I have a question on the expansion project. With the Kings River being considered a fully allocated stream, that means nothing when the floodwaters come down and our other members other districts can't fully capture it. So on a 10-year average, what do you anticipate per acre feet you think the expansion project can capitalize on a 10-year average? Is there a back of the envelope number that your board has in mind of what the potential is for that project on a 10-year average? What can we capture with that?
The number is an elusive number, right? Folks that lived out here for a while know that 2023 was an above average period of time, and a lot of water went by. We were able to take off 18,000 acre feet of water during the 2023 high flows. But there, even the San Joaquin itself was running at about 22,000 acre feet a day past us on our north side, and the Kings was running at about 8,000 acre feet a day past us on our western edge. We're going to try to take as much of that as we possibly can. As I said before, with the 4 pumps, operating, there's about 600 cubic feet per second total capacity. If they're all just burning as fast as they can go, that's 1,200 acre feet a day. Floodwaters in the Kings sometimes last a week, sometimes they last 2 weeks, and sometimes they last 5 months. So it's just sort of a multiplier. Sorry, I keep giving. 1,200 a day would be during the maximum flows. But we're capable of taking, 100 CFS a day if that's what there is out there. So it's an elusive number, but it's certainly bigger than zero. And from the perspective of McMullen, having every bit of water going to the ground that we can put in the ground is good for us and good for retiring the sub-basin. So, in terms of that 10-year period, I think we've got kind of history that shows us that about between 3 and 4 out of every 7 years we'll have water, flood water moving in the bypass. So maybe 2 or 3 times during a 10-year period if it's unusually wet, maybe only 2 times during a 10-year period if it's unusually dry. But that's as close an answer as I can get without getting with the great creator and seeing what his crystal ball looks like for the future.
Who's next?
On the expansion project, you have a permit, right? I mean, is there something gonna happen in 2030 with the permitting from the state to slow it down or stop it? We have rights to get water out there forever, out of the river? What kind of permit or application do we have?
We've actually filed an application for the flood flows over and above what the current permitted rights of the rest of the sub-basin folks are, FID, Consolidated, Alta, and the other 28 members of the Kings River Water Association. So we applied for that. Our number that we put on that was 119,000 acre feet on the annual average. That particular application is now sitting along with 2 other applications awaiting some sort of adjudication by the state water board and the administrative hearings office. Got stalled. When did it get stalled? 4 years ago now, almost. It got stalled about 4 years ago. We were waiting for a report from the hearing officer that was supposed to be out in 90 days, and here we are 4 years later. Water rights in California seem to be a turtle race at best. Probably a snail race, more like it on those kind of things. But floods are going to happen. Flood water is going to be released to the extent that it's surplus from the folks upstream from us. It will be available to be taken. And one of the things that will help us do that is our partnership with James. James does have rights to the water on the bypass. And so whether or not they're flood or whether or not they come as a result of James's intention to store water within the McMullen area with us as part of our arrangement, we'll have to see what's there. We'll see what the flow is. But in terms of permits, the water's going to be there because it's always been there during the flood. And we're going to try to take as much as we possibly can take every time.
Gavin Newsom, did you guys a special permit with that changes in 2030?
In 2023, Gavin Newsom entered an executive order that allowed for us to take the water that we took. At that point in time, we didn't have an urgency permit. We didn't have a 5-year permit. We didn't have any of that. But because the state had high interest in getting water off the rivers and getting it into the ground, because of SGMA, he entered into a fairly detailed executive order, and we were able to meet all the requirements of the executive order, and that allowed us to get the 18,000 acre feet off of the bypassing into the ground. You know, like I say, if we can get the expansion project in place, we're looking at, if we were to see those circumstances again, we'd be looking at in excess of 100,000 acre feet. being put in.
So nothing happens in 2030, doesn't have to be every year.
That particular executive order got changed into a law. And that law now allows for certain permits to be issued, and it does sunset currently in the 2029-2030 timeline. That's what you probably heard, and that's probably what we're referring to. Interestingly enough, it's very timely. Crystal and I are looking at some legislation that's being proposed that would assist landowners and GSAs in getting permits more timely. They're talking about 180-day emergency permits that would be streamlined, and then they're talking about a temporary permit that actually goes out as long as 25 years, and that's being discussed. It has not been brought for a vote or anything yet, but we are making comments on that legislation and hoping to get it into a condition where we'll get the maximum benefit. We look at everything. We can get partners that work with us and like James, or we can get folks who just want to send their water down and have us store it for them. We'll open the door for that. But right now, that's our target, is to retire that 91,000 acre feet of annual overdraft that's been assigned to us. Remember, the subbasin had about 130,000 acre feet of overdraft for the whole subbasin, but because we were, groundwater only, the decision making at the time was that we should retire 75% of the overdraft. We had no surface water. We're supposed to still, retire 75% of the overdraft, and it's not an easy task. It's an insurmountable task for most people, but not for us. We're doing everything we can with these projects to get that water into the ground, reduce that number as low as we can, so that we don't lose any capacity in our farming operations within our farm.
Question.
John, so.
Thank you, Mr. Hurley. Great presentation as always. Will MAGSA be eligible to take any 215 water off the San Joaquin?
MAGSA itself has no access to that except through a federal contractor. So once again, our friends to the west, James, are federal contractors. And so they have access to that. And to the extent that they can't use it and put it into the ground in some of their facilities, I'm certain that we'll be having discussions with them about being able to take as much of that as is available to us at the time. It'll be as part of our partnership. Who's next?
Hello, this is Ashley from Punjabi American Growth Group, also a new farmer and MAGSA now. So my question, you kind of touched it, that we are trying to find a solution for that 91,000 acre feet of solar buffer. By doing all these projects, how confident we are, like how much we can achieve it? The reason I'm asking is, if we are expecting any water cuts in the future, we need to know so we can plan businesses accordingly to the number we are trying to. So, or if there is any other project apart from this expansion, we are doing it to basically mitigate that over there.
Well, you heard from Crystal, I'll better tell you again, but she talked to you about efficiencies. As part of our plan, the first 5 years, we were focusing on two things. One was to gather data, and you've all, been dancing with the meters. That's going to be a critical set of data for us, those meters, because then we know exactly how much we're using right now and how much we can move one way or the other, right? So we have to have that critical data. The other thing was learning how to be more efficient. Most of the success we had during the first 5 years really came from folks coming out and learning from On-Farm Recharge University and the Grower Irrigation Academy, and improving, a lot of their practices out there, and really only using the amount of water that they needed to use. As a practical matter, Colin's sitting right in front of you, and I know we've had conversations about this because this is what he does every day for a living, is going out and trying to find that sweet spot for almonds or vineyards or whatever it happens to be, that the actual amount of water that gets you the greatest production with the least amount of use of water. And he said that, you know, McMullen, to its credit, has done a fantastic job of using the right amount of water, or even slightly less than the right amount of water, ideally, even borderline, deficit irrigation, because, you know, you're a smart businessman. You knew what you needed to do, and you've been doing it. The other thing is, there is a third party here. It's not MAGS, it's not any of the districts, and it's not me or the county. It's PG&E. That partner of yours probably has as much to do with it as anything, because the cost of pumping that water as it goes lower and lower into the ground has made it almost prohibitive sometimes to leave it on any longer than you can. Mama's coming out and saying, turn that thing off, or we're gonna have it turned off for us. So all of those things mitigate towards reducing that overdraft, and it's all going that direction. But, you have two choices. You can begin to allocate. I can tell you, you can only get, half an acre foot a year. And what's that gonna do to your operations? You might as well build a baseball stadium there. That's not gonna work. So what we're focusing on is that supply side. Crystal has the pentagram over here, the Pentagon. It's got the two supplies at the top. We're gonna bust our tails to continue to get more water into McMullen, reduce that number down. It's about 9 inches across the 100,000 acres now. We can get it down closer to 4, 3.5 inches, even 4 to 0. That's what we're trying to do. And we're under great pressure because another 18,000 acre feet needs to be taken off of that number by 2030. And then the big number starts. So the answers are we're open to any new and interesting ideas. We're trying to keep the cost down to a minimum for our landowners, because you can't go out of business and save the water at the same time. So we want you in business. We want you to continue in business. We want agriculture to flourish out here. And we actually believe that there are ways to get there. I may be Pollyanna about it, but I believe it's going to be doable, and we're going to make it with your help. No, you can't do it, but with your help, we're going to get there. Everybody else wants to hear what's back. You know that.
I'm just curious, moving forward, if you guys are, as growers, and we buy floodwater, if we can buy surface water, if there's any kind of program where we can track those credits, for the next 20 years, 15 years, and then when 2040 comes, the credits of growers we track, we can kind of keep.
I didn't ask him to ask that question. That is a great question. Credits, debit and credit on accounts. Yes, I mentioned that the sub-basin was considering frameworks for allocations. We're just not quite there yet. We think we're going to be there around 2030. Crystal reminded me that we've already done an analysis of some water marketing. So as between growers, once we do allocate, if you're 20 long and somebody else is 20 short, should be able to sell to each other to make sure that they each reach your destination on your annual irrigation. This is what I always try to say out loud as many times as I can, but credits. Well, let me put it in more specific terms. If your checking account gets below the black, it goes in the red. What do they call that? They call that overdraft, right? So you pay overdraft charges, and the bank will not give you any money unless you return that to at least 0 and then get it back into the black again. So that's what we have to do first. So credits are certainly on the table. We've begun to work, in that realm, trying to get past the 0 and then to the credit side, and hopefully have more water than we need, so we can in fact sell water or buy water and move it in. The conveyances that we're building are all going to allow us some ability to move water around that we couldn't do before. So that's a benefit. But the bottom line is we need to get that 91,000 acre feet retired. Once we get that to 0, now we're in the black. Now we can give credit all day long, but it's very difficult to give credit when you're already in the red. So that's a concept that we all need to kind of stick in the back of our heads for right now, because we're not there yet. But we do need to retire that red before we go into the black. And then when we get in that black, we have so many possibilities. And I think we're going to be there sooner rather than later. But great thinking about it. And some of the GSAs, some of them got in trouble, some of them on probation. They gave credits day one. Well, how do you give credits when you're already sinking? Your airplane's going down. It's tough to sell more tickets. So we're trying to avoid those those problems and stay on the plus side for them. Good, excellent question, excellent question. And it allowed me to talk about the water market. Crystal wanted me to talk about it, so. Who's next?
Okay, we got a question back here. I just have a question to clarify the phase mitigation approach. Okay, for between the years, the 5-year periods, the mitigation, is that the amount per year? Like from 2025 to 2030, 18,000 acre feet. Is that over the 5-year period or per year?
The numbers are annual average.
And so we have.
So for the first 5 years, 5 times 9,000 is 45,000. That's the number we met. The next one is 18,000 times 5. Okay, so that puts you, it's annual, and it's not cumulative, but it is, because if you don't retire, obviously you're carrying it forward. So like I said, as we did this, it was a 10, 20, 30, 40 approach. But each of those 5-year blocks gets to be a heavier and heavier lift. And that's why I pushed so hard to get these projects moving forward and get water into this GSA, because we need to, try to stem the tide on that growing.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good question. It's a reality. Yes.
Any other questions? Here, I'm coming to you.
She's gonna give it to you. That way I can maintain separation from the.
I just had one question. You talked about going east to Raisin City. What about the projects to go north? Is that quite a ways off?
That essentially would be either additional expansion of the Terra project, or it would be as the Aquaterra water bank gets finished. You take a look at the layout there, and I know it comes right through the almond growers property there on the very edge. Some of our preliminary looks that were used to do some of our assessments and so forth. We had to come out there and as part of our NEPA analysis for the federal government, we had to come out and dig 49 holes out in that area to make sure that there weren't any bones down at the 10-foot level. We convinced them that every bit of land out here has been ripped to 6 feet. And they said, oh, well, then can you put out 4 more feet and make sure there's no bones down there? And so we did. So we're doing all that. We're doing everything we need to do to make sure those conveyances do make it eventually into existence. And I'm hoping, because I'm not getting any younger, I'm hoping to see all of that be finished before I hand it off to Crystal to really have all the fun with them. Anybody else? You're all happy? You're ready to sign up right now for the $500 per acre? Oh, I didn't say that. I'm just teasing. That number, no, that's Madera County. That's not nice.
It actually is exactly 12:30. So I do want to respect your time. If you need to head out, please grab a sandwich on your way. Please grab a special Magza pen off the table as well. We made them for you to remember what our goal is for the year. But if you have any other questions, please stick around. We will be hanging out ready to answer your questions. And we're really thankful that you took time out of your day to join us. Thank you so much.